Okay, hello and welcome to the shop here at Toki Middle School. Today we're going to be learning how to use a power drill. Here's how this is going to work. You're going to watch this video, you're going to learn how a power drill works, hopefully really well and safely. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take the quiz that's underneath this video. Once you pass that quiz, you're going to show that quiz result to an adult in the room. That adult is going to see your quiz result and hand you a power drill to show them how to use it. You are going to describe how it works, how to use it, and hopefully you will get certified in using the drill. So let's learn how to use our drill. The drill we're using today is the most common type that we use here at Toki. It is a 12-volt cordless power drill. And the 12-volt cordless power drill is super handy. The first thing you want to think about, though, is safety. You want to make sure that you have some goggles on so that any wood chips, any flying debris does not end up in your eyes. You also want to make sure that your hair is tied back if you have long hair with a hairband. You also want to make sure that any loose clothing, or if you have a drawstring for your hoodie, that is tucked in and put away. You do not want to get it caught in the drill. This drill is actually very powerful, even though it is rather small. If you get a loose piece of clothing caught in it, it will grab that clothing and pull on it really hard, enough that it can damage the clothing, damage you. If it grabs a hold of your hair, it will pull that hair out. It will not be a very good time for you. Now, let's talk about our drill and the different parts. The first thing you need to know about this drill is it is a battery-powered drill. The battery is located on the bottom right here. We pinch the bottom and pull out the battery if it needs to get changed. The charger is located in Mr. Briggs's tool cabinet. You just have to change it out if it's a little low. You will know it's running low because this battery has a little meter on the side that tells you how much juice is left in it. We also have a really great button on the side here next to the trigger that tells us whether it is in forward, meaning it's going to drill into something, or drive a screw into something, or if we flip it around and press that button, it will put it in reverse and pull screws out. Most of the time, we're going to want it in forward since we're using this mostly to drill holes. The other thing that we want to think about is what settings we are on. If we are drilling holes, we want to make sure that we are on speed number 2. Okay? We also want to make sure that the dial here is set to drill. These numbers are used when we're putting in screws, and we will talk about that later. We put this on setting 1 also if we're putting in screws, and we will talk about that later. Today, though, we're covering how to drill a hole. So we're going to put it on 2, make sure it's set for drill, make sure it's on forward, make sure there is juice in the battery. Let's talk about drilling and drill bits. Well, there's different kinds of drill bits out there, lots of different kinds of drill bits. I'm going to go over some of the most common types. The first most common type of drill bit that we are going to use is what is called a twist drill bit. They're sometimes called a black oxide bit, and usually they're black or sometimes gold or silver in color, and these have a rounded top to them. They are designed to drill very clean, straight holes. However, they're not very accurate. They don't always end up where you want them. In that case, if you do want a hole that is clean, straight, and is exactly where you want it, you would use a different kind of drill bit called a brad point drill bit. And this looks very similar to the twist bit, except it has a tiny little point on there, and that tiny little point is to jam into the wood, and it puts the hole exactly where you want it. This is what you would use if these holes are going to be very exact and precise. Now, if you are drilling with these bits, I recommend that you have a piece of wood underneath that you can drill into, because 2 things will happen. 1, you'll protect the table from any damage you might do to the table. 2, you will get cleaner holes. There's a thing we want to avoid, and that's called chip out. And chip out is when you're drilling a hole, and when it comes through the outside end, lots of little splinters and messy looking hole stuff comes out the back. We don't want that. If you have a nice clean surface and you're drilling into it, like this piece of scrap wood, you will get nice clean holes. I'm going to put on the drill bit, you take the drill, and the top part of the drill is called the chuck. And what we do with the chuck in this particular type of drill is it's a twist type chuck, a keyless chuck. We are going to twist this chuck until it gets smaller and smaller, grips the drill bit, and then I'm going to grip it nice and tight. With this particular model, you actually hear a click. And we know now that the drill bit is on there. I am also going to just pull the trigger just a little bit in a safe direction to make sure that my drill bit is on correctly, that it's not wobbly, that it's going to be a nice, straight, safe drill bit. If things aren't safe, if it looks like it's crooked, it probably is, and you probably want to stop using it. You probably want to find an adult who can help you fix it. Now, the next thing I want to do is make sure that whatever I'm drilling into is stable. Most of the time you can just hold a piece of wood and drill into it that way. Sometimes though, you will want to use a clamp and make sure that your material is nice and stable, especially if you're drilling a hole where you want to make sure that hole is nice and clean and nice and straight. I hold the drill onto my work. I pull the trigger slowly. It takes a little bit of a grip, and I've got just enough of a kind of dent in there that my drill isn't going to go flying around, and then I can pull the trigger faster. I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going to keep pulling it even though I'm through the wood, and I am going to lift it out. What you don't want to do is drill the hole, it's in there, and then yank it out. It's going to damage the drill bit, it's going to damage your wood. You want a nice clean hole, in and out, with the drill still running. That helps to cool down the drill bit. It also helps to make sure you have a nice clean hole. I'm going to loosen my drill bit here and show how to use a brad point drill bit. It's pretty much the same thing, but what's nice about the brad point drill bit is it has that little point on there, and so you can put that point exactly where you want it, give it just a little tap, and you are able to drill really nice, clean, neat holes without a lot of mess. So these are good for most of what you're going to do. These are for if you want really, really clean, good holes exactly where you want them. Now, these are the most two common types of drill bits we are going to be using in this class. I'm going to talk about some of the goofy ones. Now, the first goofy one I'm going to talk about is called a spade bit. And a spade bit, if you can't tell, is kind of goofy looking. Rather than being all twisted, it's a big flat paddle. And the edges of the paddle are sharp, and it shaves out chunks of the wood around that middle hole. These drill bits are really, really messy. They are designed to drill big holes into material, and they are not very clean about it. They are typically used on construction sites to drill holes where people won't see them to run pipes or run electrical conduit through. They are not used if you want people to see these holes. But to use them, they can be really, really squirrely. You put them where you want it, give it just a little tap so it's not going to go anywhere. Definitely make sure you've clamped this. Definitely make sure you're using two hands. Because this is a spade, because it's flat, it has a tendency to grab onto the wood, and then instead of the drill bit moving, the drill will move. And if your hand is attached to this, it's going to twist your hand, and it might even break your wrist if you're not careful. So we want to put the drill bit in there, give it a little tap, and what we're going to do is apply gentle pressure with the spade moving. Okay, as you can see, I made quite a bit of a mess, and as you can see, it did make a very sloppy looking hole. Which leads me to another type of drill bit, one that we use when we want a clean hole. However, we don't typically use it with this type of drill. Typically we use this type of drill bit only with a drill press, which is another tool we'll talk about. But it's called a Forstner bit. And the Forstner bit has really, really sharp chisels that spin around and clear out the hole. It makes a lot of them. It makes a really big mess. A lot of wood chips go everywhere. I mean, I think it's kind of fun, but you want to be really careful with this bit if you're using it on a hand drill. Like I said, you usually want to use this on a drill press because you're going to be able to apply more control. It's going to provide a lot more power. It's going to work better. And typically with a Forstner bit, you really want to have it kind of on a slower speed. So I'm putting this on setting 1. Okay, a little bit more. As you can see, it makes quite a big mess. And it looks like I'm through. So, a much, much cleaner hole, right, using the Forstner bit. Now, I'm going to loosen my drill bit up and remove it. The last thing I'm going to talk about is a type of drill bit I like to use when I'm in a pinch. One of the most common things you want to do with a drill bit is make a pilot hole. Now you have these little finishing nails and you're trying to put them through a piece of wood and your wood keeps splitting. So what you want to do is you want to usually get a teeny tiny drill bit and drill using your drill to clear out some of that room and make it so that your wood doesn't split. Well, those teeny tiny drill bits break really, really easy and they're not cheap. So there has to be a better way. This is a trick I learned, and we're going to use it a lot, especially with our birdhouses. Is you take one of the nails you're going to be using. In this case, I've got this little bitty finishing nail. You get yourself a really nice pair of pliers that has a wire cutter. I'm using a pair of vice grips here. And you cut the head off of the nail. So all you have is the shaft of the nail. Right? Just the shaft of it. And then you put that drill bit into your drill as though it were a drill bit. They're not always the straightest, they're not always perfect, but what they do is let you make little pilot holes. Nice and clean. And they always make them by pushing the wood onto the way. So actually, when you put your nail in, your nail won't go in nice and smooth. It'll clear out just enough room for you to hammer that nail through, get it to stick into something without splitting the wood. And that's a little trick for making a hillbilly drill bit using an old nail. So the last thing you want to do, and this is just for this classroom, is you want to make sure if you've used any drill bits, those get put away in the proper place. In my room, it's this drawer labeled drill bits. And I want to make sure we stay somewhat organized. We want to make sure that we've cleaned up our area of all the sawdust and other materials. We also want to make sure our drill gets put away properly, and if the battery is running low, that we put the battery back in the charger. So, that covers how we use the power drill in my classroom. Go ahead and take the quiz underneath this video and show your results to your teacher. Good luck.